Okay, so in 2023, I played 67 shows in 47 different cities, 15 different countries, culminating in a total of 131 days on tour. First off, my name is Dante, aka Square Cymbals. I'm a drum music person based in Ohio. But before I go into detail about how I spent so much time away from home, let me tell a quick story. Stay with me, it's worth it. I started playing drums in 2013. Thankfully, I lived in a very eclectic and loud and musical household. My mom was a heavy music appreciator and basically had her sound system running until 12 a.m. every night. It was like this from when I was 4 until I eventually moved out. So obviously music was a huge part of my life. And upon growing up and exploring my local music landscape, I was constantly listening to and seeking out live music while keeping up with newer stuff. You see, growing up and today, there's so many media outlets where you can see artists you've never heard of perform. I wasn't sure if the show was on IFC or on Sundance, but there was a show called Live from Abbey Road, where a small collection of bands would perform in that studio. I remember one episode having a really cool performance by the Mars Volta on there. And more pertinent to the story, one episode had a performance by the band Block Party. Anyways, I'll check out local venues and city events to see who was playing often, but to find new music, outside of the blogs at the time, I'd watch or listen to bands play on college radio, alt, indie, rock, whatever. My favorite of these stations being KEXP, based in Seattle. I found so many of my favorites through this channel specifically. Being able to see someone perform their songs in a small space just really resonated with me. And more importantly to the story, one of the bands I saw at the time was called Algiers, which featured Matt Tong, previously of Block Party, on drums. Some quick disclosure, I came up watching a lot of MTV2 and Fuse in the early 2000s. That's when I experienced the bulk of my teenage, adolescent years. And this era had a lot going on musically, but one of my favorite aspects of it was the garage rock revival period that gave us bands like The Strokes, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and Block Party. Needless to say, this era of music was extremely white. And not to go into detail about it with people who are extremely uncomfortable about bringing up race, and to be honest, I don't really care if that makes you uncomfortable. It can be weird to not see yourself or your experience reflected in a genre created by your ancestor. But to dig a little deeper, seeing non-white people rip in a rock band let me know that it was possible for me to do the same. We honestly need that shit. But back to the story. I saw Algiers, loved it. It was so different. You had a collection of electronics mixed with gritty punk, mixed with post-punk, gospel, and experimental sounds. Truly a gift. And I followed them, listened to, and loved their records. Cut to 2017, and I've been playing for a while. Got a solid amount of connections through playing so many gigs, but also going through what we call drummer fatigue. You see, drummers are hard to come by. Competent ones at that are always booked and busy. I think the year prior to 2017, I was in about 5 active projects. Just doing the most, way too much. Practice every night, different shows, supporting my friends, everything. But in 2017, I joined Morning of Black Star and things just kind of felt different. The dynamics, how I had to contribute, it all just felt larger. So when it was announced that Algiers would be coming to our local venue, the Grog Shop, that September, I was like, we have to open for them. And luckily we were able to. The show went well. We then hung out at our band leader's place afterwards and had some drinks and became friends. We traveled again with them a month later, then again a year later, collaborated on projects, kept in touch. They became the homies. Now we're up to 2021. Live music is happening again. I'm about a year into making drum videos, and they asked me to fill in for Matt during their US fall tour. Think it went well. And a year later, they tell me they're releasing a new record, and they're thinking of premiering the new record with 2 drummers. So during the tail end of 2022, I fly to New York. We rehearsed a decent portion of the new record, both me and Matt, for a collaboration-heavy show at National Sawdust. A month after that, we take another week and some change to practice more songs, and then I hit the road with them in Europe. Wild, right? That goes well, I think. And in March of last year, it comes full circle where I have the opportunity to do a KEXP session with them in Seattle. I legit smiled the entire time. So that covers the first quarter ish of the year. Mid-Jan, rehearsals with Algiers, hit the European road in February, early March. I come back home, have a few weeks to readjust. And then the hometown collective Morning of Black Star hits Knoxville, Tennessee to play Big Ears Festival. After a few shows there, we fly to Berlin, Germany for our residency with Christoph Winkler Dance Company. From there, we play another collection of dates through Europe and eventually get stuck for a week in Berlin due to the airworker strike. We also performed as a collaborative backing band for the infinitely talented and compassionate Lonnie Holly. And in addition to me and my homie Elijah playing some shows with him in the US, we also have the privilege of doing more shows with him both in Europe and Australia. So, needless to say, last year was extremely busy for me, which is why I haven't been uploading here. Well, partially. We'll get into it. But first, from my travels and to certain people's reactions to Twitter threads and discourse, I've learned that a lot of people don't really understand how labor-intensive touring actually is. Like, I love being on stage. Every opportunity that I have to do so has been so rewarding and helps me grow as a performer in person. But it's only like 7% of the touring experience. Most of that time is just you squeezed into a vehicle with other people for hours at a time. Either waking up super early and going to bed super late, consistently loading in and unloading heavy equipment. And on top of that, you're constantly made to compromise what you're eating just to sustain yourself, because it's hard to find quality food on the road as well. So basically you have to sustain yourself in less than ideal conditions. And I'm not complaining, it's something that I've gotten used to. It's just something that people don't necessarily think about when they envision artists on the road. Like the first 3 days of my first European tour that year, I believe everything was such a blur due to the fact that we both played late into the night and then had to, at the very least, all be up before 6 a.m. the next day. Do 8 to 9 hours of travel, all with only like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And that's not accounting for having car issues or getting sick or the myriad of other issues you have while shuffling multiple bodies around. And what bugs me about this is not the perception of the traveling musician, but the perception that folks who have the privilege to travel and the ego that comes with those who do, acting like they're better than the normal working class person. Like, it's still a job with its hazards, risks, and rewards. And to that point, travel is incredible and I'm super lucky to be able to do so. But as I said before, so much of tour is just sitting in a vehicle for long hours at a time. Getting to the venue on time, hopefully, if you're not late, setting up, sound checking. In between that and the show, you probably have like an hour or two to get yourself something to eat. Then you hit the stage, work merch afterwards so you can afford to buy gas and food in the first place, break down your equipment, load the van back up, and then head to the place where you'll be sleeping. And it's basically like that every day until you go home. And sure, that differs for some artists who are well off, but this is the common experience for those who are lucky enough to travel playing. But this is a topic for another time that I could talk a lot about. So let's just get into an obvious one for me. I had to learn a lot of these songs for music travels, but it's such a sonically diverse and ambitious project. Feature/collaboration game is super strong on this as well. I mean, having Backwash and Billy Woods on the same track. You also get Samuel T. Herring, Zach De La Roca, Big Rube. I'll put my favorite for all of these somewhere. Listen to this a lot in the fall, and something about Mike's laid-back delivery just really hit. As always, the beat selection is super incredible. In the way that Mike's bars feel like he's fading in and out of each song, it's definitely an album meant to be felt. Forever a Sufjan fan, and I'm wishing him peace and grace in his current condition. His output has always been incredible, and with projects like this, you get so much of oldsy, folksy Sufjan, while also getting the compositional swell and experimentation of his newer work. Other than a certain unwanted verse, this project really helped me focus a lot of anger and frustration that I had, as well as the fact that the perspective is always so poignant and the bars are so heavy. Been waiting on this one for a long time, and it didn't disappoint. Really had me in my aggro feels this summer. It's a record that's just as much fun to hear as it is to see them live. The peace and clarity of this project, bold, intimacy focused, dreamy, there aren't enough words. Truly what I need, always. Yusuf has been a big inspiration for me for a minute now. I'm always interested in how he's widening how jazz, hip hop, drum and bass, and other genres communicate with each other while putting them into context with the African diaspora. That, and he keeps the music vibey and accessible. Super important.
You think you know me?
Incredible beat selection, both sonically abrasive and beautiful. Peggy and Danny's energies complement each other so well. And it's such a fun project that just hits you over the face with it. I'm still pretty behind on everything that came out last year. And even though there's a lot of downtime on the road, having the energy to constantly interact with new records while being far away from home can feel like a chore at times. So, around this time last year, I found out that I had about a month to move out of my place, which sucks because I really liked living there. And at the time, I was out of the country, 1 week into a month-long tour. And about 2 weeks later, I lost my mom, which sucks because I love my mom. Thankfully, due to having a lot of community support and an abundance of love to those close to me, I've been okay. Able to stay afloat, have a place to store my stuff while I was away, and a decent amount of space to process everything. I'm extremely grateful to be raised by someone who had the amount of compassion and grace that my mom had. She was so patient and full of musical curiosity, while also having really good taste. Having a diverse range of records in the house really molded me into the drummer that was able to spend so much time touring last year. And so much of her love for music and for people will forever be a part of me. And I'm thankful just to spend as much time with her as I did. And I guess this really explains why I haven't been uploading as much here and why I'm so behind on projects that they had faith in collaborating with me on. Sorry, Neil. That and making a ton of adjustments, kind of non-stop adjustments, getting used to living in a different part of town, feeling isolated from my friends and community because I am so far away from them now, the constant horrors of a country that I stay in, consistently funding proxy war and backing their fake little baby state, the cost of lives and suffering seen and witnessed daily, it drains you. And it's been a lot. But moving forward, I kind of want to make this space open to those conversations and to my experience as I occupy a very unique space as a music laborer. So we'll see what happens. With that said, is there anything that you would like to know about my experiences or the kind of work that I do? Feel free to sound off about that. And if you want to support my work, there's always Patreon. There I post exclusive stuff, as well as early access to videos like this and drum stems of the songs I cover on my second channel. And I guess that's about it. Yeah. If you got this far, thank you for watching. If you could like the video, subscribe, that'd be great. Share it with a friend. If you think this information will help anybody, or if you feel like they'd like to hear me ramble. And big thanks. Peace.